Sure. As I've said many times, can't be more thankful for Dr. Rooks, Brian Somerville, our athletic trainer, all the people involved from a medical standpoint for our entire medical community. The University of Maryland Medical Center, for all their help, hard work, efforts to get us back to this point. So very grateful and thankful for the work that they've done. So many things happen behind the scenes. Their efforts sometimes go unnoticed by outsiders, but I know our football team, as well as myself as a leader, completely are very thankful for how they've been able to get this accomplished, to have us return to playing football. The team is excited, as I am, to get back to competing. When you have these opportunities like this, where for the older players on this team, another opportunity to create value for themselves and doing something that they love, playing a game, having it taken away from us like it has been for so long, I think deepens the appreciation for what the great game of football is all about and what it can do for you. We're embracing the uniqueness of playing in COVID, playing through COVID. As I've said from day one, the teams that have the ability to adjust and ride the wave and understand that it's very unique, 2020 is, with dealing with and playing through COVID, will be the teams that have the best chance to be successful. We prepared our team from a mental standpoint to do just that. We've shared our, times of stoppage and pausing, restarting, resetting, but with each day, as we wake up, and as I've said before, the maximize it slogan for us is whatever rules we have for today are the rules we'll go by. And our team has really embraced that mentality. So it's helped us kind of navigate such a fluid situation. We're embracing the medical protocols that we have and understand that, for all of us, we use the term behavior modification, how we live our life on a day-to-day basis, will be really important for us to continue to play. And as we've seen across the landscape of college football, it's something that's not going away. And so what we've got to all do is do our part, and we'll continue to coach the fundamentals of navigating COVID as a program. And, our players have all embraced it and understand that it's what we have to do and how we have to live if we want to have a successful 2020 season. And so with that, I'll open it up to any questions that you guys might have.
Thank you, Coach. We'll start with Scott Abraham. Scott, please unmute.
Coach Locke, Scott Abraham, ABC7. Good to see you, my friend. Obviously, as a head coach, you have a lot of things to think about, and now you add in COVID-19. So your players are on a college campus. College is some of the best years of their lives. A lot of temptation, a lot of distractions. How much do you talk to them, maybe after practice or in meetings, about being responsible, being smart? Because one mistake by one person can jeopardize the entire season for the whole team.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on its head that, it's like raising children, and I always use that analogy that, being a coach is a lot like being a dad, that, there is no magic number of how many times you can tell kids or your children to coach and teach them. And so it's an everyday thing for us. After practice, text messages, everybody in our building speaking the language. I think some of the most powerful messaging comes from within. So I've kind of leaned on the leadership committee that we have within our program to kind of police from within and police themselves. And I think it's been embraced. We've been dealing with this since March. And, I think our players understand the responsibility that comes along with it, and the thought of not having a season kind of brings some clarity that if we want to play, and every time we turn on the TV, we see games being canceled and teams unable to play because of it. And some of it is by no doing of their own. Obviously, like we talk about, there's, we're not going to be mad if you get COVID. But what we want to do is mitigate the opportunities of doing it by having what we call behavior modification and how we live and how we go about doing our business on a day-to-day basis. And as you said, being on a college campus, 18 to 22-year-old males, some of the things we talk about when we recruit them is We want to develop you, student-wise, athletically, and then socially. Well, the social component of understanding the social life that goes on with college football right now has to be limited because of COVID-19.
For our next question, we'll go to Alex Dacey. Alex?
Good afternoon, Coach. Thanks for taking a few minutes to do this. So just kind of wanted to bounce off that a little bit. Obviously, this is a very abnormal time, but football's sort of a bit of a steadying force for you guys. So how are you sort of, I guess, readjusting to sort of this new normal while still maintaining, or I guess having football sort of the rock during all this abnormal time?
Yeah, I think we all have really gained the appreciation, to use the term I like to use, being on the grass. For me, the grass has been my solace when dealing with tough, difficult times, because it's the one time during the day of my life where I can go out for hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours now, whatever it is, to not think about COVID, not worry about all these other issues that are going on in society. It kind of gives you an outlet. And so I know for our players, dealing with a lot of the issues that are going on in society, whether it's social justice, COVID, all the different things, it's the one place you go where you really don't have time to think about those things, because you have something, the game of football, to use as that great distraction. And I know our players are very thankful for the opportunity to go out and play the game. As I said, create value for themselves. And, I know for as a coaching staff, anytime we get to go out and be around our guys and doing something that we all love and enjoy, it's a blessing for us. So very challenging times, but we understood and we understand the uniqueness and how difficult it will be. But, for us, we're always kind of trying to be in that neutral mindset of don't let our highs be too high or our lows be too low. And we're always willing and ready to adjust and start again out of that neutral mindset.
For our next question, we'll go to Darren Haynes. Darren?
Coach Locksley, thank you for doing this. Hope all is well with you and your family.
Thank you.
You were mentioning about going to the grass, and I'm just wondering, can you describe what that feeling was like? I know the start, then stop, but to get back on the grass recently with your teammates and your players, what was that feeling like for you?
Luckily for us, even when we've had the pauses, the longest pause for us, I think, was like 8 days. But, we've gotten maybe 10, 11 practices since they paused us in August. And I know there's every opportunity when I'm walking through the gates over there at our practice facility, just being able to see the guys running around. The energy level of the practices have just been remarkable in that, I think there's that appreciation that you don't appreciate something until it's gone. And I think all of us have had to do a full 360, coaches and players included, of asking the question, why we do this. And, I know for me, it's the love of the game and what the game has done and provided for me and my family. And I know for these guys, as I keep talking about the value that playing this game creates, and not monetarily, but life lessons. It's been great to see our guys almost dealing with real world issues in real time, that, let's live today like there is no tomorrow. And that's been kind of the mantra we've used with the maximize it mentality that we've created from the day we got here. All we said is, when we lay down our heads at night as a program, we want to know that we used the time wisely, that we maximized every opportunity that we had that day. And then if we're blessed to get enough to wake up and do it again the next day, we're going to go at it with full vigor and the same mentality, and just stack the days rather than really too much long-term forecasting or too much looking backwards. That's just how we've built this program and the culture we've tried to set from the day we took over here.
Just as a quick follow-up, what do you think that moment will be like when you walk on the game field, knowing everything that you went through?
Well, I think there'll still be that appreciation and the understanding that, how blessed we are to be back in this situation. to go through what we all, and not just football, but to go through what society has gone through, since March. For all of us, this is it's a welcome opportunity to go out and do something that we love to do and bring value and joy to us and our families and our supporters and our fans and everybody that loves Maryland football. So it'll be very welcoming to get to that point. Still have a lot of time ahead of us to get there, and hopefully we do the things necessary as a program to ensure we're able to get to that target date of October 24th. But we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we do our part to get it to that point.
We'll go to Daniel from the Baltimore Sun.
Hey, Coach Locksley. Appreciate you doing this. Kind of a two-part question. If you could kind of put a number or percentage on it, just how many of the guys were able to kind of stay on campus or stay around for the kind of like the workouts and whatnot that the NCAA allowed after the initial postponement. And just in terms of practice, it seems like you guys kind of the day or two after the Big Ten, brought the season back, you guys were right at it. Just how much are you able to do? Is it full steam ahead with the season?
Yeah, if I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say from June 8th until we started up training camp in August, we were about 80% participation with our players. We had a huge number of guys that were here all summer, made tremendous sacrifices, our players did. At one point for a couple of weeks before training camp, we had to pause there after the 4th of July because of the uptick in COVID. We moved into the hotel to kind of create a bubble with the hopes of it helping us get to the point to be able to have a season. And so the players, 80%, 85% of the players all made the decision, and none of this has been mandatory. From the time we paused and things were postponed back in March, everything has been voluntarily enforced, meaning our players had the choice of whether they wanted to do it or not. And for us to have the type of participation we had during these times, I was really pleased and excited to see how important this is to our players and how they valued this opportunity. So that part has been good. What was the second part of your question?
Just in terms of practice, like a ramp-up period, or you guys just going right into practice? Like, is there any alterations or anything?
Yeah, for us, it's been kind of a balancing act of, the conditioning aspect that goes along with getting a team ready to play a season, as well as the strength part of developing strength and size with some of the younger players. I mean, we're still a really young team. I think at one point, and if I'm correct, we've got like 56 new faces of people in our program, out of 110 that have never been in a Terp uniform. So trying to make sure we have the balance of developing strength, size, as well as conditioning, while at the same time, now with our ramp up to in preparation for October 24th, myself, our strength and conditioning coach, Coach Davis, our sports science people, Richie Rosado and I, we do a lot of individual meetings with each other to make sure that we're developing our team and building to that instead of just jumping right back in. So we put some things in place. As I've learned, there's a difference between being ready and being prepared. And so, a lot of these young guys that we're going to be counting on in year one to help us take the next step, they're more than ready to do it, but are they prepared? And so we're putting a lot of energy and effort into the science piece of making sure that how we practice, that it helps us mitigate and minimize the player load and the injuries that come along with trying to ramp up too fast. So I'm relying really heavily on the sports science piece and our strength and conditioning people to help me navigate it with how we put together practice plans and how much we work. So there's been a gradual buildup. We were at a 12-hour-a-week workload prior to returning, and now we're back to the 20-hour-a-week workload with one day off. And we didn't just throw back in and start 3-hour practices. We're gradually building now that we have the target date for a start to ensure that we're peaking and that we're as healthy as we can be as we work toward that date, while still understanding, at some point when we're able to put pads on, which we haven't done just yet, that there's a callousness that needs to be developed with blocking, tackling, running, and catching, the fundamentals of football, that we've got to get accomplished in a 2-3 week period of time once we're able to go full pads. And so we want to build up for that as well.
We'll go to Dave Preston. Dave?
Good morning, Coach, or good afternoon. Thanks again for joining us today. I've jumped in late. Could you talk about the process to determining a starting quarterback? What is your mindset going into camp? How important is it for you to find the number one sooner rather than later?
As with any quarterback battles, and as I've said, I've been a part of quite a few of these, either from my last place of business to being here at Maryland, and the 2012 to 15 season, we've not had a consistent starter during the times that I've been here. So as with anything, it's how we practice. It's the data that comes along with practice. As I've always stated, the quarterback that starts for us will be the guy that gives us the best chance to win games. And I know that's a generic terms, but there's some things we do in practice, some situations we practice that we can put empirical data on to show us who does the best job of moving the ball down the field, who does the best job of scoring points. We'll be putting the quarterbacks in these competitive game simulated situations and seeing how they respond and how they perform. And we're very fortunate. We may not have the huge number of depth or have the great depth, but we feel very excited about the talent that we have in the quarterback room with both Lance and Leah. And so those two have both done a really good job of the mental part of learning what we do. And now it's about going out and doing the physical piece. And, as with anything, we'll chart and create the data we need to make a educated decision on which guy gives us the best chance to win. One of the things and approaches we know we have to take as coaches during COVID type season is you're going to need your roster from 1 to 110 to all be prepared to go out and play. Because you never know what's in store for you tomorrow when you wake up and who's available and who's not. And so as a coaching staff, the challenge for us is to prepare number 1 to number 110 on our team to go out, perform, and be able to execute the things that we need to get executed.
And Coach, you last year you referred to the 2019 season as kind of a year zero as far as implementing the culture and the building blocks. This being year one, as it were, a very odd year one, what sort of things do you look to establish in the Maryland football program culture this fall?
Yeah, I would count this year's year 0.5 because we have not put on pads or done anything since the Michigan State game of a year ago. And, we've done a lot of T-shirts and shorts and conditioning, a lot of time, not being around our team. And I say that jokingly, year 0.5, but the reality of it is we have a young team. Pretty much to 50% of our roster are guys that weren't here or in the program a year ago. But I do think we've used our time wisely in how we've tried to develop our team. The mental aspect when we couldn't get together and practice, and then via the Zooms and the football 101 type things that we've done with our team to educate and make sure that they understand the intricacies of the game. And then now we put a lot of energy and effort into the fundamental piece. Prior to having the target of Northwestern October 24th, we really worked on, spent a lot of time on fundamentally developing our team by position. And now that we have the target, we've gotten back into the schematic piece of all three phases: offense, defense, special teams. And then also now trying to evaluate our roster and put the pieces together to figure out who gives us the best chance to be successful. The culture for us has been really consistent. We need to be a disciplined team. We need to play tough. We need to play with great effort. We have to have great cohesion. We got to be a team that doesn't beat ourselves in all three phases. And those fundamentals of how we want to be as a team, those won't change from year to year. We just got to keep enforcing that our players understand that that's who we want to be as a program. And for us, whether it's year 0.5, year 1, year 2, it's about taking the next step the right way and developing this program, as a whole. And, there's no quick fixes to it. We've done a tremendous job, I think, as a staff in recruiting to try to bring in the right kind of guys, but we've also done a great job of developing the players in our program to understand the culture in which we want to be as a team, but also to develop them as football players as well.
Thanks again, Coach.
Yep.
We have time for 3 more. We'll go to Emily.
Hi, I was just curious. It seemed like when on August 11th, it sounded like it wouldn't be revisited, and then it gradually moved toward maybe there's a chance of playing. And I was just curious with you personally, as you're talking to Big Ten coaches frequently, when did you start to feel like there was hope and a chance that you might get to play this fall?
I was always of the opinion, and maybe because it's the eternal optimist that I am, that we would play. Now, I can't say that I knew it would be this fall, but I can, when it first happened. But I did understand because of how fluid and, how quickly things change in the world of COVID, that with more information and with time, which I think Commissioner Warren and the Big Ten was able to gain by pausing and instead of continue to move on, as you look and see about 50% of the games that were scheduled haven't been played. It allowed us time from a medical standpoint to really ensure that we had the necessary pieces and protocols in place to ensure a safe and healthy game. I would say once we paused and we started having the weekly conversations as head coaches and being on the calls with athletic directors, we all understood that as more things came about, rapid testing, the NFL and their ability to play a safe and healthy game, leading the way for our thought in returning. And then with our medical people, which I think, again, play such a prominent role as they should, the comfort that they had and that we had the protocols necessary to ensure the safety and health of our kids. So I would say I always felt that we would play. I maintained that it would be sooner rather than later just because of being on part of these phone calls and just as coaches, we track and see how this thing was moving. And I do think, seeing how the NFL being able to navigate it as you look across the Big Ten landscape, a lot of us are in the markets that NFL teams are. And if they're able to do it safely and healthy wise and the local and state governments are able to see how it's done, that as long as we could kind of mimic those things and have those protocols in place, that it would allow our teams to be able to play safe and healthy as well.
We'll go to Lila.
Hey, Lox, how are you?
Hey, Lila, what's up?
So you mentioned just having such, so many new players on this team. And I know that you, since you've gotten here, have, spoken about how big of an emphasis you place on, the mental side of a game and helping players through that. What have those conversations been like with those new guys, whether they're, JUCO transfers or freshmen, just in, kind of having to navigate their first season in such an unusual season and not really what they expected?
Yeah, I think that's where to maybe cut down on some of the variables or the outside factors. I think when you go into every day with a clear-cut kind of approach or system for here's what we want to get accomplished today, and that's kind of the approach, because if you try to look at it from an all-encompassing point of view, it can just overwhelm you. I mean, sometimes I felt like I was trying to, cover the Hoover Dam with my thumb, just because things and just change and, the pause and the stopping and all the different things that you hear from outside. So for us, we took the approach of let's focus on today. What are the rules we have today in terms of what we can do to improve our team, and then get up tomorrow and find out what tomorrow holds for us. And I know it sounds like some, coach talk and this mentals, but for me, it just really helped. It helped me, and I think they looked to the front of the room from it. And if I tried to anticipate when we would play, who we would play, whether we would play, those things would just drown you out. So what I've tried to do with the new guys in our program is build on the philosophy we have of today is the only thing that matters to us, and we'll deal with tomorrow when it gets here. And as simple as it sounds, it's so hard to do because so many of us love the forecast, and you guys forced me to say, what are the expectations of this year? And I'm gonna keep telling you, I just have expectations for today. And then tomorrow, if you ask me, I'll tell you what tomorrow brings when we get there. And that's kind of the mindset we've tried to instill in our team to help, because there's just so many moving parts to this thing. And I think, to me, it kind of creates just this safety net of, all right, let's worry about today, get through the day, and deal with tomorrow.
And just as a follow-up to that, how have you seen the older players on the team be there to, support and mentor those guys as they, try to learn the system and just navigate the circumstances?
What's really been unique is it's just not the older guys. I mean, I think there's, leadership doesn't have to come with age. I think leadership is having a positive impact on others. And we've got a bunch of new players that have showed up here that have the work ethic that you're looking for, that kind of have embraced that mindset of being the best version of myself today, that help maybe even some of the older guys kind of get on board with it. So I think it's been a combination, but I think the big piece for us, Lila, is that the leadership group that I have, the leadership council that we created within our team, we constantly are communicating back and forth. They're the voice of our team. I utilize them to help push the messaging down, because I do believe that accountability is horizontal and that we're all accountable to each other to do our part as a program and as a organization to ensure that we do the best job we can to put our best foot forward. So I think it's been a combination of just not leadership from older guys to younger, but just leadership from within that I think is really paramount to a good team becoming a great team.
Okay, for our last question, we'll go to Sean Stepner. Sean?
Hey, Coach. Sean Stepner from ABC Baltimore WMAR. Good to see you again. Hope all is well.
What's up, Sean?
What's up? Hey, this question is specific to Talia. He got the clearance to play this season, then you guys shut down. Obviously, no one wants the postponement and the ups and downs of what the last few weeks, have showed everybody regarding the scheduling. But to Talia specifically, how much do you think this extra time has benefited, him and you guys as a coaching staff, knowing that he does have the ability to play for you guys this season?
Yeah, I think the extra time has been good because, one, it has allowed him to really get to know his teammates. I mean, I think from a quarterback standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, that comes along with that, playing that position. Both he and Lance have a close relationship and have done a great job of trying to embrace their roles as leaders, because that comes with the territory with that position. For Leah, I think the time has allowed him to really get to know his teammates. You learn a lot about people when you go through adversity together, and for all of us, society included, going through the adversity of a pandemic together, navigating it. I mean, these guys have organized individual workouts when we were paused, where they're trying to find a field somewhere near campus to get and have been able to put together on their own these individual, as we call, captains workouts. And, I think the time has allowed him to maybe develop the real relationships that come along over time. And now I think there's a mutual kind of understanding, from him and understanding his teammates and understanding him. Same with Lance. So I think the time has been used really wisely by both guys. I think for Leah, because he was a new member who showed up June 8th in the middle of a pandemic to start working without even knowing whether he'd be eligible or not. And then once he got the eligibility, go ahead to play immediately. I think this time has really helped him and his teammates get to know each other on a personal level, which I do think the teams that are really tight-knit through this COVID-19, that'll play a huge role in the success you have on the field, because that respect and that camaraderie just has to be there.